You're listening to episode 151 of Present Moment. Welcome to Present Moment, Mindfulness, Practice, and Science. I'm Ted Meissner. Present Moment is a podcast with interviews, conversations, and roundtable discussions. We speak with mindfulness researchers about their newest findings published in peer-reviewed science journals, teachers about their understanding and methods as they work with students of mindfulness, authors about their books and interests, and we also speak with everyday practitioners. The website presentmomentmindfulness.com has show notes for each episode along with resource materials. Hunter Clarke-Fields joins us to speak about Mindful Mama Mentor. If you're listening to this podcast and find value and insights from what is shared here, know that this is made available from your generosity and the generosity of others like you. I want to thank those of you who are making monthly donations to keep this podcast going. And if you're not yet, please take a moment, go to presentmomentmindfulness.com and click on Make a Donation. One-time or especially monthly donations show you value this work, which can't happen without you. Thank you for your help, your support, and your kind generosity. I also want to thank our friend Anthony Dominello of Structure from Sound for lending his talent and skill to this and my other podcast. Anthony has donated hours of work every week for years now, and I'm so grateful for his dedication and wish him the very best as he moves on to other projects. As many of you may know, raising children is more than a full-time job. Kids need attention, education, let alone food, clothing, and perhaps especially love. That's a pretty tall order, and mindfulness can help parents be at their best. Hunter Clarke-Fields is a mindfulness mentor, coach, and host of Mindful Mama podcast, and creator of the Mindful Parenting online course. She coaches moms on how to cultivate mindfulness in their daily lives. Hunter has more than 20 years of experience in meditation and yoga practices and has taught mindfulness to thousands worldwide. Our guest today is Hunter Clarke-Fields. Hunter, welcome to the podcast. Good to be speaking with you.
I'm glad to be here, Ted. Thank you.
As I was saying before we got started, I always enjoy speaking with other podcasters because sound quality is so nice because we all have these really nice microphones. So thank you so much for being here.
It's nice that there's no like little buzz like going on in the background.
It's not over a cell phone. Yeah.
Yes, take a breath.
Well, let's start by just having you tell us about your background.
All right, cool. Well, I came to mindfulness through sheer desperation. I was I was like, a highly sensitive child, really intense kid. And I would just kind of be up and I would be down and I would be up and down and just very push and pulled by my emotions. I mean, yeah, I really do. I think I was a lot to handle for my parents, and I remember being like 10 or 11 and just having been in a puddle of tears on my bed, and my dad was rubbing my back and trying to comfort me as I recovered, and he said to me, "Oh, Hunter, this is your artistic nature and life will always be like this." And I was like, "Oh, great."
Thanks for the pick me up there, Dad.
I know. And he was right. He's very much like that too. Um and so, as a teenager, it was pretty tumultuous in my house, and I started looking at books about mindfulness then, looking for relief. Actually, the first book I picked up was a little bit odd and strange. I had my parents had a book of like, it was one of those little tiny mini books, pocket books that you can
Yep.
get, and that Shambhala used to put out, and it was like of Zen koans, but I didn't know. I was just like, oh, this Zen thing. I put it in my pocket and I biked to my job. Um, After school, and where I had a lot of sort of free time at this job. And so I would read this like Zen koan book, and it was very inscrutable and I was very confused. But nonetheless, I persisted. I found the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh, who, I eventually ended up practicing that tradition for a long time and going on retreats there. Um and it gave me, just reading the books gave me so much peace, helped me feel hopeful that there wasn't something terribly wrong with me. And um and then after about 10 years of reading lots of books, I finally sat down to practice. And then it was really interesting because before then, I would do yoga, I'd practice yoga, and then I could be in the present moment. Then I would go running, and I would, after a while, in college, I stopped listening to Nine Inch Nails and Wu-Tang Clan while I was running, and practiced just being present while I was running.
Not that
And then
there's anything wrong with those bands.
it was great it was very cathartic. But anyway, it was nice to be present as well, with my breath. But then when I did a yoga teacher training, then I was finally able to practice, and I sat for 10 minutes a day for 5 or 6 days a week. And despite kind of getting to the point a few months in where I was like, this is BS, I just sit here thinking the whole time, I'm not doing anything, I'm terrible at this, all of those thoughts,
Yeah.
I realized that I hadn't fallen into any of those pits that had fallen into for 27 years of my life until then. And they just kind of like went away. Not that the feelings went away. Those, I still have a whole host of range, as everyone does, but that feeling of like, I can't handle any of this, and I need to, you know, I'm having a panic attack at work or whatever it was, that went away. And so it was this
Mhm.
incredible transformation for me. And it really, it evened me out in a way that just empowered me to do so much more. It really made a huge impact on my life.
Right. So from that practice and that realization that, oh yeah, there's stuff that's happening, even if I might not always be crystal clear and aware of, an achievement today, achievement unlocked, it's still happening. And you're noticing that. So since that time, how did that progress for you?
Well, it was helpful to know, even if I don't feel like I'm doing this right, there are these like effects that are happening. It was really powerful. And that really empowered me. And I found a sangha. I found a group nearby who practiced in the tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh. And that felt was really satisfying to me. I had grown up I'd grown up agnostic, and I was kind of like, I was the kid who had nothing, and in this sort of Catholic town, where I was told I was going to hell because I was like, I don't know. Anyway, and so it's really satisfied this sense of like also like a sense of community and spirituality. And I had, for me, and I really felt like, wow, this is great. And then I became pregnant 2 years after that, and I remember really sitting with my big pregnant belly in the sangha and thinking like, oh man, I got this. Like, this is gonna be this Zen baby. I'm doing such a great job at this. Look, I'm meditating while I'm pregnant. I'm giving this baby this peaceful experience. So, um, yeah, and so I had delusions, I
Yeah,
think.
how'd that actually turn out for you?
Yeah. And and then after that, then the real learning began.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had a baby. and life happened. And I imagine there were a lot of adjustments, and you met practice maybe in a different way. What
Oh
was
yeah.
that like?
Well, lo and behold, my child was a kind of intense, highly sensitive child. Who would have figured?
Karma, it comes back at you.
It keeps coming back at you. I started to get I remember at some points, like, apologizing to my parents.
I'm sure they
And
loved that
they
comment. Yeah.
yes. Tell us more, Hunter, tell us more. But, it really was the energy of my grandmother, and then my father, and then myself, and then this highly sensitive child. And I had her in this all natural birth center, freestanding birth center. So I had all these friends that now who are these you know wonderful crunchy mamas, and they just seemed so like they seemed so blissed out. And I was like so struggling, and my child was so fussy and difficult, and there was so much to learn there. And that's really where I really had to kind of I saw my anger arise as she started to talk back to me and talk, walk and talk very, very quickly, resisted everything I said, of course. And seeing I could just see these like patterns like that were happening. Like, here it is again, like, oh my gosh, here's my father's anger coming out again. And it's coming through me, and it's the thing I didn't want most in the world is now coming out through me. And so it really became, it became my teacher, just looking into these things that were arising, this anger, this energy that I didn't want. I wanted to push away desperately, and realizing that that didn't work and that it couldn't. And so there was an intense amount of learning to do. And I really also realized very, very quickly that I had to take time away from my child in order to be a better person for her. So, kind of building in these pieces. But the real learning was like in seeing these patterns, seeing these energies repeat, and working with them.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about that. Was there ever a moment in these various recognitions that you were making, a recognition that, without a practice, I might not even be seeing this stuff. I might just be swept away by the anger, swept away by the reactions instead of noticing them and pausing and making other choices, including a choice which is sometimes appropriate to step away and get a break and distance yourself. Facing things head on sometimes isn't the right response, and it is a little counter to what typically might happen in a mindfulness training session where we're taught to face things and look at them. Sometimes it's also take a break. So was there some recognition of, well, at least I'm seeing this and I know what to do with it?
Yeah, I really got to start to see the pattern of when I could see it. So at first, when my anger arose, it was so powerful and so surprising because you just don't get that angry in a normal adult life. And that I was and I would see it after the fact, after I yelled. And then I felt all this, the shame, the second arrow, all of those things would come up. And there was really a practice of I really saw that at this point I really needed to bring my practice into my life so much more. I really needed to practice. um I was kind of like I practiced on the mat and then I lived my life. And then I saw that I needed to bring this practice of those calming, that stress, reducing that stress, breathing, all that stuff into my life with my child. And then I started to see, oh, I'm getting this awareness of I'm about to yell, and then I'm still yelling anyway. And
Yep.
then would move back in the timeline, and then ultimately I was able to get to that point where I was able to a lot of the time stop the yelling and sometimes not. And for me, what became really clear was that the practice of self-compassion became so much clearer for me. Just seeing the difficulty and the power of the energies that we have, and seeing that when I was hard on myself, it wasn't helping at all. And when I could be kind to myself, then everything softened, and then all the energy softened, and I was able to start to walk that back. And it was really interesting for me actually at this point, because I doubled down on my practice, and I started to see that like mindfulness wasn't enough for parenting, and that I needed like these communication skills, right? So I realized that one, mindfulness wasn't enough in the fact that once I was able to sort of like calm down, I was able to start to reduce that stress response. I was like, yes, I'm getting better at this. This is great. And then I would say something that was just like might have been something my parents would have said. And then it was like kaboom. It was like a whole other like explosion would happen. And for my child, and I was like, I just started to realize that okay, I need some skills. I need some communication skills. And then as I started to learn and study these, I could see that in this sort of parenting world where they were teaching these wonderful, skillful communication, went and studied and got trained in parent effectiveness training, all kinds of things, nonviolent communication. I studied all these. And what I saw, what was missing in this world was the mindfulness piece. Like, because their part was just step one, say these good things. But you can't.
How do you get to that place of being the person who says those? It's a great what model, but what's often missing is the how. How do I get there?
Exactly, exactly. I could see that, I'd been studying all the neuroscience of the brain was coming out, and how mindfulness, and how we know, and you've probably talked about this many times on this podcast, how that fight, flight, or freeze stress response literally bypasses and cuts off access to the prefrontal cortex, where that logic and empathy and verbal ability and problem solving and all of that stuff is centered in. And so to just say use these, say these skillful things, it's all well and good, but all that goes right out the window when the stress response is triggered. So these two really needed to come together, and I could see that in my own life. So that's where I came and started to contribute to this discussion, is that these two things do need to come together.
Yeah. And I think it's a very good point that isn't often held quite so openly and sincerely in mindfulness communities, is that mindfulness, again, we say it many times on this podcast, it's not a cure-all. It is not a replacement for therapy. It is not the answer to every single problem that shows up. It can be wonderfully helpful and can really maximize effects in other disciplines when applied properly and when mixed with them, and can have wonderful salutary effects on its own. But there's more to it than that, and how the rubber meets the road in whatever particular area we're talking about, whether it's parenting or food or addiction or therapy or trauma or whatever.
Mhm.
Mindfulness can be a part, but
A
maybe not
strong
the only thing.
I completely agree with you. And I think it's a strong foundation, right? It's like the foundation for being able to learn all those things, because then you have the awareness of where your thoughts are going and where your reactions are, and you start to understand, what it feels like to have a craving and resist it, and practice that non-reactivity in all of those things, and sit with the discomfort of all of those things. So it's an incredible foundation for learning everything. I mean, the power of it for me blows my mind, and it still does, and it's incredible. And yeah, there's more to learn. Like, there's also more to learn. I needed to learn how to stop threatening and ordering, and how do you talk to a 3-year-old and get them out the door without direct orders. And it's really interesting to sort of bring these together, because the way, and to even see the way that the way we interact with children, and the way we are with children, the way children affect us. I mean, I really do think of my children as these like incredible teachers. And, you know, if like a Zen master is going to show you your issues you need to work on, like children are definitely little Zen teachers in that way, because here's your issue, and here's your issue, and here's this, and here's this, here's some more.
So that progressed, maybe fast forward a bit to your book that, as of this recording, I think is soon to come out, and that is called Raising Good Humans. Tell us about that. So there was, in your own experience in raising a child and with mindfulness, there were these different worlds that were brought together that were complementary and helpful to you. So what was it that made you think, hey, this is making a nice book?
Well, by the time I got to my second child, I was like, okay, I'm practicing some things. Things are going well. And at this point, I had been blogging and sharing with my yoga and mindfulness and building a community. And at one point I realized, like, you know, it was interesting because it was kind of one of those sort of like dorky little exercises that you get somewhere. And it's like, well, if money were no object and you could do anything you would want to do, what would you create and put out into the world? And I realized, like, I would do a mindful parenting course where we brought these two things together, the mindfulness, the self-compassion with these communication skills. Like, this doesn't exist. It needs to come together. So I did. I created this course. I created a mindful parenting course where it's, you know, because I saw there were some that didn't have the communication skills, and some that had the communication skills that didn't have the mindfulness. So I brought them together and I created this, and it became it was work I'd been doing with other moms, and started to bring this all together. So then when the book came out, it was like, it was what I had learned from the course and putting that all into book form,
Mhm.
basically. Hmm.
So tell us about the structure. What's in the book itself for folks who are curious about what might be there and how it might help them?
So the structure, it starts with, and it starts like my course starts with, it starts with mindfulness and why and how, you know, for the person who doesn't know anything about it, what's happening in the brain, why is it helping you, why do parents need this non-reactivity piece so much? You know, I think it's, to me, helping lower our stress response and becoming less reactive. It's just like, oh, this is just obvious. This is what we need as parents. But so taking that, and so the first half is taking this inner work that we do of parenting, where we kind of think of it as almost this outer thing, like where it's about changing the child's behavior, but we realize quickly that there's so much inner work, you know, that's that work to lower our stress response, um, and work to understand your own childhood, like develop your awareness of what are these triggers, what are the things, these buttons that your kids are pushing, and why do they feel so intensely to you, understanding that, practicing self-compassion and understanding why that is important. It can be hard for this, that can be one of the hardest parts. So taking that, learning how to take care of our difficult feelings, because most of us weren't taught anything about that. Like, whole generations of people are just told, don't feel those feelings, you know? And so how to do those. And so then when we, because the thing is, like, with kids, is that we realize is that kids aren't, it's kids are not good at doing what we say.
We weren't and they aren't.
They never have been, right? But they're great at doing what you do. Like, you see, oh, I mean, I think I really remember watching my oldest child with my youngest child and saying, oh no, that's what I sound like. That's what those orders sound like. And that's terrible. Okay. And that these sort of wake up calls. Um, so the work of, you know, changing our own habits and our own way of practicing that inside out, that acceptance and love and all of those things, because ultimately, like, when we're squeezed, what's inside is going to come out. So we can't just make a superficial change. It has to be a deeper change. So that's what the whole first half of the book works with. And then the second part works with communication skills, how to talk so kids will want to listen to you. how to get your own needs met, how to solve problems without using threats and punishment, how, problem solving skills. And then there's some pieces in there about your home and how to kind of some extra practices to support your peaceful home. So basically, it kind of walks you through that journey.
Hmm. And I'm curious what the response has been from maybe early reviewers or people that you've had take a look at it. What are you hearing about it so far?
Well, I've had great responses. I'm excited. I did get a lovely blurb from Tara Brock, who I was so thrilled to like have her check it out and to endorse the book, which was so exciting. Yeah, I mean, I think people see that this is what we need, right? We need it kind of brings together many things from a lot of different areas and brings them all in one place. And it's kind of in the it's parenting, but also I kind of think of mindfulness and or skillful communication and reducing our stress response are kind of these are the life skills that could be applied in many different scenarios as well. Yeah.
Great. Well, before we move on to another topic, is there anything else you wanted to share just about the book or this area of mindfulness and parenting and communications and self-compassion?
Yeah. Well, I think that that one of the pieces in the book that I think is important to me is that really that self-compassion piece. Many of us we go to buy a parenting book and things like that because we feel like we're failing. We are hard on ourselves. We tell ourselves we talk to ourselves inside in a way that we would never talk to anyone else. And to me, that breaks my heart. And I would really, and I know that it's not effective for what we're wanting to do either, So that I hope when parents read this that they don't skip over that first part of that work to come to the communication skills to change the child, because those even though these pieces are sort of they can be it can be scary, and it can be um to look at these different parts of ourselves. I think it's really valuable and important to say, okay, this love of my child that's driving me to want to do this learning, this feeling of like I need to know more. Maybe make these things our teachers, these challenges. Let's make these things our teachers. And ultimately the piece about mindfulness just being in the present moment, like your podcast. It's like that in some ways is the ultimate gift. I mean, we want to reduce our reactivity so we're not yelling, and we can say some more skillful things, and that's wonderful because that all snowballs better. But the whole idea of just, you know our our children, there's like thousands of cells being created and thousands of cells dying in their bodies every day. They're growing so fast, they're changing so much, and it happens so quickly before our eyes. And we want to be able to be there for that, to be there for that change, and start to see that to see them with curiosity, to see them for who they are now, and bring that idea of curiosity to who are you today? Can I see you today? Can i can i be curious? And I really love the one of the things that drives me so much is a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, and he says, when you love someone, the best thing you can offer them is your presence. How can you love if you are not there? And I really, that really for me drives a lot of this work.
Great. Thank you for that. And for those who are listening, just note that when you speak with authors, there's a link to their book on the episode page for this episode, so be able to find that there. And I want us to shift on to our other topic and have you talk about this. What is Mindful Mama Mentor?
Oh yes, it's a very alliterative title for me. um it's funny, for a long time, as I did the work of sharing mindfulness and sharing different tools to help us navigate this road of parenthood. It was frightening and scary and intimidating to say that I could share these things, even though these have been part of my life for so many years and such a dear part of my heart. And so with Mindful Mama Mentor, I share the Mindful Mama podcast, and I do the Mindful Parenting membership. And they're just it's ways that I can help walk people through these steps, how to implement, how to create your own mindfulness practice, how to respond more skillfully, how to do all these things. And then with the podcast, the Mindful Mama podcast, I get to, like this, talk to amazing teachers. Got to talk to Sharon Salzberg. I was so honored to be able to do that, and to take these powerful teachings and share them with the world, which I love. But basically it's this platform and avenue for me to do this work, and it's been very exciting and fulfilling because um I don't know, I started on my laptop, and I started with like, a couple $100 in the bank account and my laptop and a good DSLR camera. And that's what I had. And then it's grown into this way of sharing and connecting, and it's been a powerful journey for me. And it's been great to be able to take it into, you know, make actual work that's, supporting my family, and to take something that I believe so passionately in and want to share so much, and have that sharing be something that reaches many people. It's really terribly exciting and fulfilling and really hard sometimes.
So actually, what I wanted to ask about, what are some of the challenges that you run into in making these offerings and sustaining that over time? Because that's not easy. This is a marathon.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I'm a very stubborn person, so that helps a lot. um, Yeah. Well, it was interesting because it's funny because I'm coming back now to diving again, once again, sort of that. I think lessons come in spirals, right? And I'm kind of spiraling back to diving deeper into my mindfulness now through a certification program. But that was this driver in the beginning, and I wanted to share that. And then there were all these things I had to learn. I had to learn about uh, creating an online business, and I had to learn marketing, and I learned how to send emails and share with people, and how to create videos and all of these things. Like, it was this whole, like, it was years of education of trying to understand this, which is maybe not my forte. My forte is the connecting and the interaction. But it really and sometimes it's really hard and can be really challenging because you're reaching out to everyone in the world. But sometimes it's really it there are those things that come back to me that I have to kind of like, I have to sort of print them out, that, like, those messages that come back to me that really sustain me. I have one up that I printed out recently. Someone said that she told me this story about her mother had been in the ICU for months, and she said that when she wrote this, that weekend she had passed away, and she said she had been sick for many years, battling cancer, and she felt really helpless, and it was really the hardest thing to deal with, was in being in her last hours. And so she said she found herself repeating the loving kindness meditation she learned from my program. And she said, I tried to breathe, I focused on the words, and I wished her peace and myself peace. And she said, I couldn't have done that without your help. And because of you, I have a meditation practice. And I get goosebumps thinking about these things, because it can be really hard to do these things. I'm still a highly sensitive person. It's still like, it feels like a wound sometimes when difficult things happen. But these messages are the things that really sustain me.
Thank you. And for those who are listening again, I'll have a link to that on the episode page. It's mindfulmamamentor.com. Hunter, I'm wondering if you just had one piece of advice, one recommendation, one thought to offer to people who might be listening, who might be struggling with raising their own sensitive, energetic replicant of themselves at 3, what
Oh,
might that
3 is the worst.
be?
It gets better after 3. If you do have a 3-year-old, it gets better after 3. Sorry, keep going.
Well, just that. What would you
Yeah.
offer them to maybe they can turn towards with whatever it is that they're wrestling with right now?
I guess I would say that, whatever it- whatever those challenges are, they can be your teachers, and you can begin again. You can begin anew each day. You can begin anew tomorrow. And that don't give up on that intention that you began with, that intention to to be real and to be loving and to all of those things, and hold your North Star, and hold that intention, and also allow yourself to be you, I guess, is what I would say too.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Our guest today, Hunter Clarke-Fields. Have more on the episode page for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Great speaking with you today.
Thank you so much, Ted, and thank you for doing the work you're doing to put all this out into the world and share these voices. It makes a big difference for everyone and has incredible ripple effects I'm sure you don't even realize. So thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about something you've heard in today's podcast, please come and visit the website at presentmomentmindfulness.com. You'll find an entire webpage devoted to this and every episode. You can comment on the episode page and find show notes and other helpful resources for your mindfulness practice. The shakuhachi music heard on Present Moment is used by permission and through the generosity of musician Rodrigo Rodriguez. His website is linked on the Present Moment website on the About Podcast Music page. Until next time, remember, every moment you have a choice. Make it the best you can. See you next time on Present Moment.